Tov, good evening. Second night of Hanukkah here in Jerusalem. Um, I guess still first day of Hanukkah for you in North America. It's wonderful to be together with some beloved familiar faces. My name is Shira ben Sasson Furstenberg, and I am, I guess, starting tomorrow or maybe formally in 2 weeks, the new director of NIF here in Israel. After 20 years with the new Israel Fund, I guess if you stick around long enough, you get to the top. So I guess that's the first message for tonight. Stay with NIF and good things will happen to you. And I think this is a community that understands the concept of stay with NIF. So the purpose of our meeting tonight, and Daniel will add to this, of course, soon, is to thank you and to spend some time together as a community, even though we're all in different places and small faces on the screen, to share the light and to share how we've managed some of this year's challenges, and some of this year's strength and direction. As a community, because NIF is its people. And I always, we as a senior staff multiple times have participated in the exercise. If you're in the organizational business, you know the term SWOT: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities. I'm forgetting strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And every time we map NIF strengths, you people are on the top of our list. And from strength to strength, being here together as a community is being able to face our challenges. And I open with a big toda and a big koach, a big thank you and big strength to you, back to each and every one of the people on this call who make up our community. There's a favorite quote that I love very much from the Midrash in Bereshit Rabbah, and I actually found it in English. So I'm gonna share it with you, and here it is. A society and a family are like a pile of stones. If you remove one stone, the pile will collapse. If you add one stone, it will stand. So the Hebrew original text says a chavura. I don't know why the translation chose the term society, but a group or a community. A chavura and a mishpacha, a community and a society and a family are like a pile of stones. If you take one stone out, and you probably all know the game where you have to take one stone each time and wait for the whole tower to collapse. If you take one stone out, it's going to collapse. If you add one stone to it, it's going to strengthen it. And this is how I think about our community. It's been a difficult time where we have lost beautiful souls, loved ones. In our general Israeli community, Jewish community. Just yesterday, the devastating events in Bondi Beach in Sydney, and getting used to the fact that stones are taken off of our pile has become our reality. But stones are being added to our pile and strengthen it. And if you're lighting Hanukkah candles tonight, I urge you to consider my friend and neighbor, Rachel Goldberg-Polin, Hirsch's mother. Hirsch was a member of my congregation. We might have met already and spoke about this between us, because I might have shared this with some of you. And Israeli audience has just been able to see shocking footage of the beautiful six, Hirsch and his 5 friends, footage taken hours and hours. We were only exposed to very little of it that the family has approved. And you see them lighting Hanukkah candles in the tunnels. I don't know if you've already seen photos or the video itself. It was aired here in Israel on Thursday night. And they're using little paper cups, Turkish size coffee paper cups, upside down, standing on their head, the cups, and little candles. And they're trying to find oxygen in the tunnel enough to light their Hanukkah candles. And they're singing, and Hirsch is explaining that Mao's tour has 6 verses, and that every verse is about one of the times where, we were in danger and survived. I actually found strength in this video because they're so much alive and they're so together, and they're like a family and strengthening each other. And I find strength in Rachel's choice. She said, I have so many beautiful silver menorahs, and, we have them from all the years and stuff we made and collected. And she said, for every Hanukkah from now on, for the rest of my life, I'm going to be lighting on paper cups. So, if my friend and neighbor Rachel has the strength, we definitely should. And we were so honored to be able to support the hostage families with hundreds of thousands of dollars to do their important work this year, because as crazy as developments are on the ground here in Israel, and as buffled, is that the word I'm looking for?
Befuddled, maybe?
I don't know, like don't know how to handle.
Baffled.
Baffled,
Baffled.
thank you. As baffled as we all are by having to understand that solutions to long existing problems of Israeli society and our region are being solved by your president, who I really shouldn't be looking for ways to describe your president. That's for you to do. But as baffled as we were for him to be a driving force in freeing up our hostages and the fact that we only have one left, I believe that the power and resistance and determination of people in the streets every week, every Saturday night, every week, not only on Saturday night. And if you've visited, you've participated, and I believe that that was no less of a driving force that brought these beautiful people home. And I take strength and honor for us to have been able to support that work. And I am honored for us to be able to support the people who are joining Olive Harvest in the occupied territories, and huge personal danger and risk. And I am honored for us to be able to support food and shelter in Gaza. And I am not tired, and I have persistence and determination together with you and together with our wonderful staff to continue this work as things are unfolding and baffling, big word today that I hope I'm using correctly. Clarity of vision and strategy is what we're trying to hang on to, and what we're trying to do day in, day out, with your help and with the persistence and determination of our staff and of the community of our activists and grantees on the ground. So with this, thank you, and with this finding strength within ourselves to persist, to resist, and to have strategy and direction, I turn it over to my boss, my dear Daniel Sokatch. Bevakasha.
Thanks, Shira. Hi, everybody. The thing about Shira is her English is so perfect and unaccented and better than most of ours that on the rare occasion that she can't quite remember a word, it's startling. You kind of think she's faking it, but every now and then you're reminded that this extraordinary woman is speaking in her second language when she's speaking to us in English. I want to start where you sort of left off, Shira, because of course what we all know is that the last 2 years, but really the last 3 years, have been could be characterized as 3 years of cascading, constant crisis in Israel, bigger and bigger and bigger. one leads to the next. And this doesn't start with October 7th. It's sometimes hard for us to remember. But the truth is, we as an NIF community have been in this, let's call it crisis mode since January of October of 2023. So, 10 months before October 7th, this current government in Israel came to power and launched what the Israeli press called a judicial coup. The government called it judicial reform. And in short, just to refresh our memories, this was an attempt by a government, the most extreme in Israel's history, made up of what I like to call the MAGA Likud, right? The Likud, the right-wing party in Israel, had lost many of its members because of their personal or professional animosity or distrust of Netanyahu. The centrist parties wouldn't work with him anymore. So eking out a narrow victory in an election after he successfully toppled what we call the change government, which existed for 1 year, he turned to the most radical political forces in Israel to build a government. And this government, made up of his cult of personality Likud, the ultra-Orthodox parties, and what I'll call Jewish supremacist parties, radical settler parties of the extreme right, led by people like Bezalel Smotrich and Itamar Ben-Gvir. They launched an attempt to eviscerate the independence of the Supreme Court, the High Court of Justice of the State of Israel, the last remaining check on their ultra-extremist, ultra-nationalist shared agenda. And that's when something strange happened, something unexpected. Because while the Supreme Court was the last official check on power, it was not the only check. And what happened, of course, as you all know, is that a mass movement objecting to the attack on the Supreme Court and the attack on Israeli democracy rose up, and ultimately, in the hundreds of thousands, if not millions, managed to shove a stick in the spoke of the wheel of authoritarianism. And to this day, even after all the horror and bloodshed that has happened since then, they have still not, this government, succeeded in destroying the independence of the Supreme Court. It's not that they're done trying, but they have not yet succeeded. And that is because of civil society. And as you all know, the engine, the animating spark of civil society in Israel is the New Israel Fund and our community. So what I'm trying to suggest here is that it's a very Hanukkah appropriate metaphor and conversation for us to have, because we know that New Israel Fund and our organizations were not the bulk of the people who were in the streets in 2023. That was the mainstream of Israeli society. But it was NIF and our organizations that lit the spark, that brought about the first protests that grew into the mass protest movement. And the same thing is true after October 7th, when we, like the rest of civil society, had to shift, turn on a dime, away from the defense of democracy towards filling the gaps that were left by this government, which not only failed to prevent and anticipate October 7th, but to respond to October 7th. And NIF and the rest of Israeli civil society jumped into that breach. We were doing everything from buying hotel rooms for people from Ofakim, a hard scrabble, not particularly NIF-friendly city near the Gaza border, to providing medical treatment for those evacuated from the kibbutzim, to providing iPads for Bedouin kids whose schools had been destroyed, and sending cases to the High Court of Justice demanding that Bedouins living in so-called unrecognized villages near the Gaza border, these are Israeli citizens, receive not just bomb shelters, but also Iron Dome protection. So we shifted into a totally new mode. And as Shira said, we were founding funders of the Hostage Families Forum. And the Hostage Families Forum, ultimately led to the mass protests to end the war and get the hostages back that bedeviled this government every day of the last 2 years. And so once again, the NIF community was the animating spark that helped light the candle that shined in the darkness and led to a much bigger flame rising up. Now, I don't want to embarrass her, but you mentioned, Shira, the program that we had, and we'll hear more about that from our dear friend from World Central Kitchen in this hour, providing humanitarian aid to Gaza through our partners at World Central Kitchen and a few other organizations. Well, that program began when Shira called me and said, "Boss, I can't sleep thinking about kids in Gaza who are starving." So this is an opportunity for me to say that as you, Shira, step into this role that you've prepared for the last 20 years, there couldn't be a more qualified person to take on the leadership of NIF in Israel, not only because you've experienced the work on the ground, you and I have worked together for almost 2 decades now, but also because your moral compass is the right one for this moment because you were able to stand with Hirsch's family and you're able to lead a Jewish and Palestinian staff in Israel that you can imagine, everyone, the tensions that have existed over the last couple of years that Shira and Mickey have led with such grace and success, a community made up of both Jews and Palestinian citizens of Israel. And you also have the moral compass to say, no, we have a responsibility also to those suffering in Gaza. So I feel in so many ways that the last 3 years of really unprecedented challenge have been my proudest 3 years at NIF. And that's because of Shira and her colleagues and our grantees on the ground. But it's also because of all of you, really, let's say all of us, because NIF is also my number one philanthropic priority as well. And this NIF community around the world, in particular here in the United States, where over 80% of our funding comes from, but around the world, in Israel, in the UK, in Australia, in Canada, in Germany, in Switzerland, and everywhere else where NIF folks exist, we stepped up and we provided support for this organization to triple its grants budget line over the last 3 years to bring online projects and initiatives that were smart, that were strategic, and that made a difference, that pushed back against authoritarianism, that helped stop the rolling wheel of autocracy, that shined a light on what we're doing right now, shining a light on what's happening in the West Bank, right? Where under the cover of fog of war, there was an attempt by radical settlers empowered by the Israeli government in Finance Minister Smotrich, who also, by the way, controls a post in the defense ministry that puts him in charge of the civil administration of the settlement enterprise and the occupation. During this period where there was an attempt to essentially de facto annex the West Bank by terrifying Palestinian villagers, sending them out of their homes, often backed by the power of the Israeli army and government, NIF and our organizations adopted a priority strategy that we call protective presence. And Shira mentioned it. This goes beyond the normal things that NIF has long done that so irritate so many of our critics, which is supporting Israeli human rights organizations, which we do as a top priority because, of course, the job of human rights organizations is not to make us feel better. It is rather to hold a mirror up to society and ask, is this who we want to be? Or to paraphrase a line that someone once said about religion, for us, for NIF, the job of human rights organizations is to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. But beyond our regular support for Israel's heroic human rights organizations who have been shining a light on what's happening not only in Gaza but also in the West Bank, we have supported a major investment in what we call protective presence. And these are brave Israelis, sometimes non-Israelis as well, brave Israelis, mostly Jewish Israelis, who put themselves physically on the line by going into the West Bank and standing literally between Palestinian villagers and farmers and the radical settlers, often backed by the army, who would torment them. It is unfortunately, what do they say? It is dog bites man when a radical settler or someone from the army shoots dead or wounds or brutalizes a Palestinian villager. But it is man bites dog when the same thing happens to a Jewish Israeli who has put herself or himself on the line there. And for that reason, the media carries it. And when the media carries it, it spreads internationally. And when it spreads internationally, it puts pressure on the Israeli government. And now the Israeli government is feeling the opprobrium of the rest of the world about what is happening in the West Bank. And the fact that people are paying attention to it comes from more than any other source, from these brave folks who are putting themselves on the line and who are getting into the news covered in blood and often brutalized to stand between, again, radical settlers and Palestinian villagers just trying to live their lives. All of this is to say, we live in a period of incredible darkness. all around us. As Shira said, the things that are happening, for those of us in the States, what happened at Brown, what happened in Los Angeles last night to beloved Rob Reiner, a film director, and his wife. It feels like it's too heavy to bear when all of this comes together. But the fact is, I can't imagine a better tonic for the despair that we sometimes feel at moments like this than being together with you all. Because again, you have enabled this organization at the hardest time in the most challenging moments of our history and perhaps Israel's history to operate with a level of impact that is completely on a different scale than anything we've done in the past. So I want to thank all of you for what you do every day to promote peace and justice and a truly shared society and democratic future for everyone in the region and frankly around the world. And as I begin to prepare for a sabbatical, which I think some of you know, I wrote to you about it last week, which begins next month. I know that NIF is in extraordinarily good hands, not only because Shira is stepping up to be the director in Israel, and Mickey Gitson, who had that job, is right as we speak flying to America, where he and his family will live for the next year during my sabbatical, and he will serve as acting CEO. But also because of all of you. I know that you have Mickey and Shira's backs, that you will make sure that NIF is able to go from strength to strength at a time when we are needed more than ever before. So the last thing I want to say is I want to share with you, here's my Hanukkah present to our NIF community today. I shared with the staff yesterday after the horror of Australia a poem that has been banging around in my head for much of the last year, maybe even longer. And it's by the British poet Auden. And it's a poem that he wrote on it's called September 1st, 1939. He wrote it on the eve of World War II, as World War II began. And he thought about the darkness that was surrounding the world. But this is how he finishes that poem. This is the last stanza of the poem. Defenseless under the night, our world in stupor lies. Yet, dotted everywhere, ironic points of light flash out wherever the just exchange their messages. May I, composed like them of eros and dust, beleaguered by the same negation and despair, show an affirming flame. You all are the affirming flames of the New Israel Fund. And the New Israel Fund is an affirming flame in the darkness right now. And it has been the great honor of my career to work with all of you. And I look forward to seeing you all in a year to get back to the hard work. And in the meantime, I'm just a phone call away. So back to you, Shira.
Don't call him. Let him work. Let him use his sabbatical for everything he promised he'd do. But call
I
him if
meant
you
you
need him.
could call me Shira.
I might try not to call you either. You should have a real sabbatical. You deserve it. Thank you, Daniel. And I am so honored and privileged. I think I'm going to use this term a lot. So really honored and privileged to invite our partner, Tunde Wackman, who is a senior staff person, the chief development fundraiser officer with World Central Kitchen, and so honored and privileged to be able to partner with this important organization I think there is nothing impossible for you people. I think, the term impossible doesn't exist. And even when things seem impossible on the ground and no trucks are getting in from any side of the border, you're able to make do with, I don't know, magic beans or whatever it is that you put into work on the ground in Gaza, and being able to have such a trusted partner in the past year and a half, and to be one of your, I hope, lead supporters to the work that you're doing, has enabled us to answer a need that many Jews and Israelis have in a time where we're being taught by our leaders here in Israel that there are no innocent people, children, families in Gaza, that the term innocent doesn't exist. To be able to partner with you to answer the most basic needs of innocent people on the ground has been oxygen for us and a lifeline, I hope, for the people who so much need it. So thank you for your partnership. And it would be our honor to hear from you how you've been able to operate and what you've been able to do and are continuing to do on the ground in the Gaza Strip for the past 2 years and also still today, which is so much necessary. So thank you, Tunde.
Oh my gosh, the thanks is all mine. What a lovely, warm introduction, and thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to join you today. My name is Tunde Wackman, and I have the honor and privilege of leading World Central Kitchen's fundraising team. And I just want to start by saying toda, a big thank you to all of you here today and to the entire New Israel Fund community. Truly, when there's darkness, I like to say that there's always a glimmer of hope and there's always light, and you are truly that light. So I love that reflection throughout Daniel and Shira's remarks about the light. And I truly think that this community represents the light, even when the world just seems so heavy and hopeless. Your support has really helped fuel our work, and all of us at World Central Kitchen are deeply moved by your generosity and your partnership. And I think, again, when the needs are just so immense and the situation is extremely challenging, your partnership represents all that is good there in the world and has really allowed my organization, WCK, to show up with dignity, with care, and with speed. And for that, we are deeply grateful. In the spirit of today's program, I won't delve too much into the technical details of how we get our jobs done. It's definitely a carefully crafted logistical dance that is not without its complexities. And I will share probably our activation in Gaza is the most complex in our 15-year-old history. It's challenging, but it's also probably the most rewarding. I'll reflect on what we've been able to achieve together. So I'd like to share a brief update on our work in Gaza, the progress that we've made in recent months, and perhaps a few moments that have reminded our teams why the work matters so deeply to us. So at WCK, as you know, our mission is very simple. We feed people. Our work is truly grounded in responding with the urgency of now, as we say it, because we know that when people are hungry, they're not hungry tomorrow or next day or the week after or the month after, they're hungry today. So in partnering closely with local communities when it matters most, we are often the first boots on the ground in the aftermath of a disaster. In Israel, for example, alongside our local partners, we have had the honor of feeding the hostages and their families. And we have also responded to the wildfires earlier this year. Those are just a couple of examples in our Israeli activations. And how we do our work is a little unique. We don't deploy large external teams. In fact, our global permanent staff at WCK is quite small, relatively speaking. They're just around 130 full-time employees. Our model is built on empowering people closest to the crisis, making them architects of their own solutions, if you will. We support local food systems whenever possible and inject resources directly back into the communities that we serve. So we employ locally, we secure our ingredients locally when feasible. In Gaza, unfortunately, that is not the case, and collaborate with local restaurants, vendors, and food producers to reach communities in need. So that's, again, injecting the funds where it's needed most. In Gaza, what our work means is that Palestinians are feeding Palestinians. While local sourcing is not possible, our commitment to a locally led response remains truly central. We have over 1,000 Palestinian team members to date, with our newest kitchens coming online, who are operating our kitchens, managing logistics. They drive our trucks, sourcing ingredients from Egypt, from Jordan, and really helping the operation run as smoothly as possible in a disaster zone. They are there to help ensure that meals reach families in the hardest hit areas as well. These are community members leading the responses, and it is their expertise and resilience and dedication that makes our work possible, that drive the impact that we're able to achieve. We've been in Gaza since the very beginning of the conflict, and to date, we have served more than 160 million hot, comforting meals through 6 high-capacity kitchens and a network of 66 community kitchens currently operating. We had more, but those are truly operated by local leaders, and as the conflict moves, of course, those community kitchens move with them. What the high capacity kitchens represent, anywhere between 50,000 to 150,000 meals per day, depending on the location and on their capacity. In recent months, I will say our focus has been on dramatically increasing food production across Gaza. Our broader goal is to reach capacity to serve up to 1 million meals per day. And we realize that this is an ambitious target, but it truly reflects the scale of need and the urgency of the moment. And that support of this community has been essential in helping us build toward that scale. I'm thrilled to share that we're now able to consistently serve over 700,000 meals per day. So we're on our way to meet our daily meal goal, and that's in no small support from you. So thank you for your contribution to that goal. One of the most important recent milestones that I'll also flag were the opening of 2 new high-capacity kitchens in northern Gaza, which was an area that had been extremely difficult to reach and where access to food had been especially limited. We opened Zaytun Kitchen last week, meaning olive in Arabic, honoring that central symbol of Gaza's land and culture. And this kitchen has the capacity for 150,000 meals daily as conditions allow, of course, as we can source goods. The community is already referring to it with affection. Our team tells us that the name alone has sparked a sense of recognition and pride, and that just motivates them further to serve their communities and their neighbors. We've also expanded our bread production. And bread, of course, is a staple of daily life in Gaza, and access has been severely disrupted the last couple of years. So expanding bread production has been one of our biggest priorities. And just this month, after months of coordination with authorities in Israel and in Jordan, 2 brand new high-capacity mobile bakery trucks arrived in Gaza to join our existing mobile bakery that's been operational since last year. So each truck can produce about 60 to 70,000 loaves per day. And once fully operational, combined with our existing bakery and partner bakeries that are operating on the ground, we expect to reach nearly 500,000 loaves per day. So that is just one of those figures that boggles my mind, that is possible in a disaster zone. But thanks to our teams who are so resilient and so determined, anything is possible, as you mentioned, Shira. For families who have gone months without reliable access to bread, this is, of course, transformative. Our local teams described the moment these trucks crossed into Gaza as one of the genuine relief and celebration moments that they have experienced as of late. So your support also helps us expand targeted programs. Aside from feeding local communities, we are also reaching over 14,000 students with daily hot meals across 11 schools. And we are partnering with UNICEF and local education networks in this regard for distribution. And of course, the teachers tell us that children who once struggled to stay awake are now alert and energized and ready to learn, and in some ways ready to be children again. Hospitals across Gaza are also receiving our fresh fruit and hot meals and bread, of course, which are critical nutrition for patients, caregivers, and of course, all of the exhausted medical staff. And for infants, probably the most vulnerable among us in any displacement crisis, of course. WCK is distributing essential infant formula through hospitals and trusted community partners as well. And behind all of this is perhaps one of the most complex logistical operations we've ever run. This past week alone, just to put it into perspective, we had about 60 trucks of supplies entering Gaza. Another 1,300 pallets are staged in Jordan, ready for transfer. And nearly 100 trucks were received and dispatched inside Gaza to kitchens, hospital shelters, and community partners. So that just puts it into perspective, I think, a little bit of like the weekly volume that we're able to truck across and just get to families in need. And I think I mentioned earlier, but just worth noting how extraordinarily difficult the conditions are that our teams operate under. As you can imagine, operating in Gaza comes with constant challenges, whether that's shifting front lines, access constraints, or unpredictable security threats. Name it, our teams live it. But even in the most difficult moments, we've seen just the incredible acts of humanity and the trust from the communities that we serve. This is the only way that we are able to do our job, is because we earn that community's trust. I could really talk for hours about the amazing acts of generosity and humanity our team witnesses every day. But perhaps I'll share one story that moved all of us at WCK to tears. And every time I tell this story, I still get a bit emotional. So I'll apologize if I do shed a tear here. Regardless of where we activate, our teams hand out meals and assure recipients that they'll be back again the next day. That's literally the last thing that our teams will say. We'll say, what do you need? Who else do you know that needs help? And here's your meal, and we'll be back again the next day. We'll be back again tomorrow. And the day after that, until you're okay. This is how we earn our community's trust, and in some cases, protection. So earlier this year, one of our kitchens had to be evacuated rather quickly due to IDF operations. I think we had a few hours. Our team needed to leave immediately, and although they secured what they could, they were forced to leave behind some of the cooking equipment, a lot of the cooking equipment, actually. When the area was finally cleared and it was safe to return, our team walked into an empty kitchen. At first, they thought the equipment had been looted, but then something truly moving and unexpected happened. One by one, community members came carrying pots, pans, and tools, everything that they had taken to keep safe for us. They told our team that you told us you would come back, and we knew you would. And we wanted you to be able to start cooking again as soon as possible to feed our children. So it's moments like this that remind us that trust is at the heart of our work. People see that we show up every day, that we listen, and that we work alongside them and not above them. So that trust is earned, and it's powerful. It is what allows us to operate at the scale that we do, even in the most complex environments. And as we look ahead, the needs in Gaza continue to evolve. Displacement is unfortunately ongoing. Access remains fragile and inconsistent. Right now, we have access, which is good. Families are still facing extraordinary hardship and uncertainty. But one thing remains constant. WCK will continue to show up with hot meals and with fresh bread, with support for local food systems, and with the belief that food is a human universal right. And what we've built together here, these kitchens, these bakeries, these community partnerships, the supply pipelines, are truly lifelines for hundreds of thousands of people, many of whom have lost everything else. So with that, I'll just close by saying that none of this would be possible without partners like the New Israel Fund community. So thank you, thank you, thank you for your trust and for your belief in our mission and for your generosity that really, truly fuels our work. Thank you.
I mean, what can you say? Just again, toda to you and for your partnership and for everything that you do and the magic that you're able to do on the ground, thoughtful magic that you're able to do on the ground. I just say that here in Israel, 85% of the people who gave to the Gaza humanitarian aid campaign that NIF ran were new donors to NIF this year. That was shocking to me. It means that our partnership together on the ground brought hundreds of more donors into our community just because we had this way forward together.
Shira, if I could just also add to that, sorry to interrupt, but we've raised over $3 million. You all have given over $3 million, 100% of which, of course, goes to World Central Kitchen through the NIF campaign. And of the folks outside of Israel who have given, something along the lines of 20% identify as non-Jewish. And that's fascinating for me too, that we have become a safe place not only for people in the Jewish community to support this, but also many, many people outside of the Jewish community are using NIF as a vehicle to support humanitarian aid into Gaza.
So, I mean, really, but we have two more wonderful guests who I want to make sure that we hear from. And as we heard of the humanitarian amazing work, the lifeline, like you said, that is happening on the ground in Gaza, I think our next two guests embody what really NIF DNA, to use so many letters at once, but NIF DNA of the way we think about social change, democracy, partnership, the road forward for democracy and peace in Israel. And I'm so honored to invite the wonderful, amazing Raghad Jaraisy, this year's winner of the Galanter Prize, who you were able to honor in California earlier this year, but also Sikkuy-Aufoq's co-executive director here in Israel, a true face of partnership in everything that she embodies and in everything that Sikkuy-Aufoq is doing for equality for Palestinians in Israel. And at a time where equality or even just respect and the right to exist and live safely in Israel is not taken for granted, the work that Sikkuy-Aufoq is doing and fighting day in, day out to enable equality, life, dignity is, again, an honor and a privilege to have you here tonight and to have you as a partner. Raghad, bevakasha, v'toda.
Hi. Hello, everybody. Thank you, Shira. Congratulations on the new amazing and very, very important role. And hi, Daniel. Good to see you. Good luck with the new challenges of the new year. Thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to be here with you all today. And thank you for your support and very, very important work. So as Shira said, I am the Palestinian co-executive director of Sikkuy-Aufoq. Sikkuy-Aufoq is a Jewish Arab civil society organization working in Israel to advance full equality and a shared society between Palestinians and Jewish citizens in Israel through policy change actions, including research, advocacy, and public engagement. As you all know, the past year has been one of the most difficult we have faced. A year of war, deepening polarization, democratic backsliding, and growing attempts by the current government to undermine fundamental principles of equality, of inclusion, and the rule of law. All of this has taken place alongside and in the context of a devastating war in Gaza, a war of destruction marked by the loss of basic living, as we heard, conditions and prolonged human suffering. At the same time that Palestinian society in Israel, as we were grappling with the severe consequences of the war, we were all confronted with clear evidence of the deep and inseparable link between the national conflict and everything that's going on around us, and the struggle to advance equality and a shared society within Israel. While the Palestinian minority was facing rocket threats as everybody else, and the lack of basic protection, lack of emergency preparedness, unemployment, and policies of silencing and persecution, we were also facing a persistent and deliberate attempt to undermine what had been achieved through years of sustained struggle and hard work, basic budgets and resources after years of discrimination for social and economic development of the Arab society. Over the past year, the government advanced several initiatives intended to cut, hollow out, and fundamentally reshape long-term development plans for Arab society. Plans designed to reduce gaps in employment, in education, in welfare, in infrastructure, and personal safety. The moment I choose to share with you today is one of struggle, but also of success, despite of everything. The last attempt was led only recently of this government by Minister for Social Equality, Mai Golan, who tried to appropriate around 3 billion shekels from the remaining 2025 and 2026 budgets for Government Plan 550, the 5-year plan for socioeconomic development in Arab society, and transfer them to Minister of National Security, the famous Itamar Ben-Gvir, under the cover of a new crime-fighting program that stands on no professional basis. Instead of promoting social equality, Golan joined forces with Ben-Gvir in trying to steal the budgets allocated to Arab society under false fabrications and with whitewashed words. We took a number of steps to fight this ugly move, together with the National Council of Heads of Local Arab Authorities, partner civil society organizations, and others. We worked on multiple fronts to prevent the government from approving the resolution. That included a close, ongoing dialogue with the bureaucracy level in the relevant government ministries, public campaign on social media and in the press, sending letters to senior officials in government ministries to enlist their opposition to the plan, initiating discussions in the Knesset committees on this issue, and pursuing legal steps that could lay the groundwork for a future petition if the resolution passes. The difficult struggle, we led in recent weeks has partially succeeded, and the original program of Mai Golan, the theft of 3 billion shekels, was not approved by the government, despite of major forces that pushed for its approval together with the state budget. Instead of their plan to divert 3 billion from 550 program, a smaller reallocation was approved yesterday, one of 220 million, a move we continue to oppose and fight against. We do note that while this was a major success and a clear proof that our ability to fight for our vision, even in the most difficult of times, the struggle to preserve the 550 budgets and ensure a follow-on 5-year plan for socioeconomic development in Arab society has not ended. The way is very long. But for me, this was a deeply meaningful moment. Not a dramatic victory, maybe, but a powerful realization that consistent, values-driven civic action can still make a real difference, even under extremely different political conditions. We will continue to act and expand our efforts in the necessary direction in the coming weeks and months, remaining alert to additional threats that will surely come later on. I will end by saying that this work would not be possible without your support, without organizations and people that can remain committed to democratic and human rights values, even when the political climate turns hostile. The future I imagine is one in which equality is no longer treated as a special project, but as a given reality. A future in which Jews and Palestinians live here not through fear management or consistent crisis, but through shared responsibility, dignity, and hope. A future of just and long-lasting peace. Your choice to stand with us and with this work, especially in the last few years, is not self-evident. It is meaningful, it is courageous, and it makes real impact. So thank you all for making this possible.
So I'm always humbled when Daniel says, remember that Shira's English is her second language. Remember that Raghad's English is her third language. And like she said, nothing is taken for granted. Thank you for your amazing work. Thank you for your partnership. I wish you all the strength and brains and strategy while facing the next challenging year, 2026, which is going to be extremely challenging for Israeli democracy, extremely challenging for Palestinian citizens of Israel in light of the upcoming election that is so crucial for all of us. And so, again, a free and open election for Palestinian citizens in Israel is not to be taken for granted and has to be fought for. And we will be there to do this together based on all of the tax laws that we abide by, the US tax laws, the Israel tax laws, the Canadian, which are probably the most challenging, and every legal, limit that we have to stand by, but also every all of the energy that you are able to bring, and the brains and the strategy in order to make this what we need it to be. 2026. So thank you so much. And when we say from strength to strength, I think we're we are privileged to have a person who chose the word strength as a title for his operation and for his organization. Eran, the wonderful Eran, our partner, Eran Nissan from Mehazkim. Mehazkim, giving strength, having strength, really responding. I mean, I don't know how many things you need to respond to a day, and how many challenges you have to answer in 1 week. Sometimes literally at your doorstep in your home in Yafo, and sometimes at the doorstep, of every single one of us Israelis. And you're always there with your finger in the dam in such a creative way, outside the box, organizing the field, responding to the biggest threats in the most creative, responsive way. That's exactly what we need in our camp. And I'm so honored to invite you to say a little bit how you've been able to respond to all of these crazy challenges that are happening day in, day out. Eran, bevakasha.
So good evening, good afternoon, good morning. It's an honor to be here, and it's tough acts to follow, all of the people who spoke before me. And I was asked to give a little bit of hope, and I'm going to try to do that in the next couple of minutes. So my name is Eran Nissan. I'm an Israeli peace activist. I'm the CEO of Mehazkim. Mehazkim, as Shira said, means to strengthen, to empower, and we're a progressive digital movement. Our expertise is digital activism and digital organizing. We were established with an emergency grant of NIF, and in the last 8 years, we have been privileged and honored to get the support of the New Israel Fund. And as people spoke, as Daniel and Shira and the others spoke, but specifically to think about the last 3 years. And it's hard to pick a watershed moment or a dramatic breaking news that NIF did not respond to, starting from the, I don't know, famous, infamous judicial hall overhaul and the first protest, and to support not just the veteran established civil society, but the emerging civil society. And throughout 2023, the New Israel Fund was always there when we had a crazy idea or a creative idea just to try something out. And they said, go for it, try. And not a lot of philanthropy have this capacity of encouraging people to try new things, especially through the mechanism of emergency grant, but also to have our back and to give support to the civil society, understanding that civil society is one of the pillars of say, liberal democracy or a flawed democracy, or as Raghad said, backsliding democracy. And I was asked to pick one moment, and with the peace activist in me, and I said I'll come with my peace shirt, and I'll talk about its time, and I'll talk about the big event that we had about celebrating peace and how we're trying to reignite the peace camp in Israel as something that expands the conversation, not just about talking about the viability of a two-state solution or the feasibility, and with graphs and maps and statistics, which are important, but the yearn for peace, the emotional work that we need to do to celebrate peace, because unfortunately for a lot of Israelis, the conversation pivoted from should we want peace? Is peace possible? And to put the emphasis about how important it is to pursue peace and how amazing it will be when we'll have peace. So I wanted to take the conversation there. But then when people started speaking, and especially with all the Hanukkah references at the beginning, I thought about the fact that hope is like a candle in a dark room, and you need a dark room to see the candle. When everything is full of light, you don't see the candle. When everything is amazing, you don't need hope. Hope is there. You need hope when things are shitty. And I wanted to talk about the last 48 hours and how the New Israel Fund support the strategy of the NIF and your support and the strategic thinking about identifying the spaces, the vacuums, and answering them through what happened in Jaffa. I live in Jaffa, 2 minutes walking from here 2 nights ago. So 2 years back, NIF identified a shrinking democratic space and was very intelligently and I will say very it's an entrepreneur that understand that there's an idea that there's something missing in the field, established what is called the hub, the hub for protection of the civil space, and brought into the same round table all the experts on giving the support that individuals and organizations and activists need when they are under attack, whether it's with the what we call the militias in uniform, meaning the police under Itamar Ben-Gvir, or the militias without uniform, like violent settlers or what we call quote unquote poison machine. So around this round circle, there are lawyers and psychologists and social workers, but also campaigning experts and media experts and social media experts, that whenever we identify someone in need, we can go and help them. Not just the professional activist, but also and maybe the not judgmentally, just amateurs, just ordinary people. 2 nights ago, Saturday night, a woman, 9 months pregnant, resident of Jaffa, an Arab woman wearing a hijab, was attacked by three Jewish, I will say, not teenagers, young people. They sprayed her with pepper spray. She was with she's, as I mentioned, 9 months pregnant. She was in her car with her mother-in-law and her two kids, age 5 and 7. And like Daniel said, violent attacks happen. When we look at the last month, we have seen dozens of instances where Arab citizens of Israel are attacked out of nowhere. Bus drivers, people who clean the streets, just people that under this government, it became normalized to just walk up to someone, hearing someone speak Arabic, and just violently and viciously attack them. And this woman who was attacked, her name is Hanan, is an amazing human being. The fact that this incident could have gone unnoticed. Okay, so there was attack. The police framed it as an argument about parking. Just two people argued about parking in Jaffa, and it escalated. And the fact that the hub identified that there is a woman in need and we gave her the support, we very, very quickly contacted her and gave her the media connections and the social media connections. And we in Mehazkim and the Citizen HQ that Mehazkim is part of and the hub stormed on this, I will say opportunity, but incident, in order to empower and elevate it so people don't talk about what happened in politics and in the Knesset, but to talk about what happened in Jaffa and to connect the dots into a wider narrative of what is happening in Israel in 2025 in the last couple of weeks. And it became breaking news. She was covered in Jewish, Hebrew-speaking media, mainstream media, last night in Channel 11, and the mainstream media just started calling the police. The police had to go and put out the video of the attackers, and two of them were arrested an hour ago. The fact that NIF can support the year-long, decades-long struggle for peace and equality, and give the support for established civil society in order to fight the long fight, but also give the answers and the resources and the networking and the connections to the day-to-day needs of the people on the ground, whether in the West Bank or in the streets of Jaffa. It's what make NIF so unique. And I think what Daniel said about October 7th, NIF staff calling and booking hotel rooms for people in Ofakim is just an instance where the true, Shira said, the DNA of NIF came to be. So I'm going to wrap it up, and I'm going to say that although we need a dark room in order to see the light of hope, a little bit of light dispels a lot of darkness, and we fight the darkness with light. So thank you.
I don't know if I've said enough times how honored and privileged I am to work. As I go to light candles with my family now, I will share with them everything that we've heard here tonight from these three wonderful people. And I will share with them that we had close to 200 people spend an hour together to find hope, strength, resistance, determination, when times are difficult or unclear or baffling, to have direction and to find this direction here at NIF. So again, to each and every one of you, toda rabba. And may we have the strength to handle the challenges of 2026 as it comes knocking on our door, and whatever it will bring us, we will have that strength because we have the right people in our donor community and in our activist community and on our staff. We're surrounded by the right pile of people, and that is why we have the koach and the strength. So toda rabba, Chanukah Sameach. May we only have good news and strength to continue. Thank you, thank you, thank you.